So we wanted to speak all over. And that's going to be a lesson if you got new members. You
made it. You made it. 30 seconds. He's always there. Never fear. Never fear.
All right, we're going to call to order the December 14 Park Township Board of Trustees meeting. And we're going to be led by Trustee DeHaan and the invocation, and then we'll say the pledge of allegiance. All those, everyone stand, please. That's able to.
Would you pray with me? From the Gospel of Luke, we read, today in the town of David, the Savior has been born. He is Christ the Lord. He will save his people from their sins. Father, in this season of Christmas, in which Christians around the world celebrate the birth of your Son, Jesus, we come before you with joyful hearts and gratitude for your love in sending your Son, Jesus, that by trusting in him, we can experience the peace that passes all understanding and the security of eternal life in your presence. Father, as Christians, this Christmas season is also a time of reflection. We are ever mindful of your continued blessings on this nation. How blessed and thankful we stand to have the freedom of worship freely without authoritative rule or censorship. In this season, let us be mindful of those less fortunate who struggle physically, mentally, and emotionally due to loneliness and just coping with the burdens of everyday life. May your Holy Spirit comfort them during this season. And finally, Father, we thank you for each of our board members, for our commissioners, for our board members, for our zoning board members, and the entire Park Township staff, for their devotion to serve the citizens of the township. We thank them for their time, talents, and resources to be leaders and servants of the people. Through their combined efforts, many significant decisions and projects were accomplished during this past year that will have long-lasting benefits to the township. Lord, we pray for your presence at this meeting. May it be honoring to you. We pray for Jim and his as he leads us. May we also be respectful for each other and have open minds as we share our opinions and decisions. Thank you, Lord, for it is in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to look for a approval of the agenda, and just want to make a comment here. One thing that I said was lengthy on the agenda that is now not. The purpose of that discussion is on the ballot, so let everyone know that. So now we will look for any additional deletions or an approval to the agenda. There are motions to approve.
I move we approve the agenda as presented. Support.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Now we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And we will look for a motion for that unless there's anyone who needs to talk about any changes. Support. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we're gonna move on to public comment.
Hi, Jackie Beck. I want to talk with you for a moment as both a resident of Park Township and as a board member of Park Township Neighbors. The facts are that for more than 50 years, short-term rentals have not been a problem here. Yet a few individuals who felt strongly against them stirred things up and spoke out, often with hyperbole and exaggeration. In truth, short-term rentals are not a problem that needs to be solved. The majority of residents want to continue to have a small number of residential short-term rentals available for families, friends, and tourists to stay in. So I'm asking you, the board, to strongly consider the impact of the circuit court judge's recent ruling, where he granted a preliminary injunction prohibiting the township from taking any action against homes used as short-term rentals. Deciding in favor of PTN is significant. The American Bar Association calls injunctions an extraordinary and drastic remedy. They aren't done lightly, in other words. And the judge in our case made that clear with his comments. Reading directly from the transcript of the meeting, he said the issuance of an injunction is a big deal. It's a huge deal. To issue an injunction, the plaintiff must show that they are likely to prevail. And the judge found that we had done so. That's even before going through the time-consuming discovery process, which has now started, as you know. So please keep that in mind when considering the case in your closed session. And I hope that you will be good stewards of our taxpayer dollars in the matter and that you'll do what's best for the township by following the law. Thank you.
Next row.
Hi, Merry Christmas. My name is Lisa Gonzalez. I live at 1400 Perry Street. It is literally across the road. That way? Okay. I don't know where I'm at. Okay, so I live that way. I don't live that way. So needless to say, I've been here before. Some of you probably know me or recognize me. I am the second closest neighbor to the Cooper Van Wieren Park area and of course the airport park. So I'm here again today to kind of discuss some of concerns, and I won't deny some frustration that I have right now. To refresh your memory, or some that may not know, some of the position I've had in the past is that Perry Street is a very narrow dead end road. It was that way for about 40 to 50 years. The past board and the past supervisor did vote to do something with the Cooper Van Wieren land after many years of it laying kind of stagnant, even though we were in the process of deciding the airport property. Long story short, the parking lot came in. There were some problems. This board has been wonderful in seeing and recognizing these problems. They installed a gate. And then most recently with the McKenna consulting firm that came in and we did the focus group, they were very good at recognizing the fact that the road itself is very narrow. There are 2 drainage ditches down each side. The increased foot traffic and bicycle traffic, along with, the ability for the cars to pass, posed a very big safety issue. So with that being said, part of the concept for the new airport property is to put in a new entrance and permanently close the entrance on Perry Street. I was overjoyed when that happened, and I'm grateful. To be clear, I love what's happening in this community. I'm not against what's happening in the Cooper Van Wieren Park. I'm not against what's happening in the airport property. It is a good thing for me where I live. What I am struggling with, though, is what happens on the street where I live. So this is somewhat of a personal issue, but it's also a public safety issue. So personally, the increased traffic and the traffic that still comes down that road at 2 and 3 and 4 in the morning is a bit of an issue, a safety issue. But more importantly, I love watching the families walking down my street. They're awesome. It's wonderful. There is the potential at risk. Cars speed down there constantly. With that being said, the other day I happened to notice some some stakes and I called Howard to inquire what the stakes were. And he said that they were putting in the trail system. I thought, gosh, this is great. Tell me where the new entrance will be. And he said, well, I can't because actually I don't know. Let me talk with Jim and I'll get back with you. I said, perfect. I won't deny I was a little frustrated. I don't think it was that lovely, but I was like, well, why wouldn't we do this? If we're getting a survey, it would make sense to incorporate everything at once, especially where an entrance would maybe interject with a trail system. But I want to leave it to you, the professionals. A week later, I received a letter in my mailbox that said, hey, great news. We're going to start developing the Cooper Van Wieren area for a bike club. And it's now going to be a mountain bike club. Again, this is great. However, what's not great is that we've recognized that Perry Street entrance is a public safety issue. We voted to make sure that that entrance is changed to avoid a public safety issue that was already there with one trail. Now we're putting in several more trails and we're inviting all of this new traffic down Perry Street, a street that's not designed to take that on. And I promise you in the spring, more bikers, more walkers. They ride their bike to the farmer's market. They ride their bike to Kin. They all cut through that now open field. So what I'm here today is to ask you two things. One, please give me a reasonable explanation as to why we wouldn't incorporate that new entrance, even if it was a temporary gravel entrance, why we wouldn't incorporate it from the get-go. Or two, would you please consider making this kind of an emergency situation and talking about incorporating an entrance off of Ottawa Beach Road before it's too late and we have to reprogram all of the people, we already have a lot of traffic, but imagine what these two additions to this area could bring. So that's what I have. I am asking you to please consider that. Please talk about it in your next meeting or make it an agenda item, or at least somehow communicate with me as to why it wouldn't be a good idea to do it now. Okay? Thank you all very much for your service. Happy holidays.
Anyone in the back row? Right, how about this side? Anyone here? Come on up.
Hello, Anthony Senegor, 2280 Pavilion. I rise, I guess, to commiserate with the trustees regarding the recent litigation outcome, or at least the initial hearing regarding the short-term rental issue. This body and your colleagues on the Planning Commission conducted an extensive due diligence process and I think correctly decided to enforce the existing ordinance dating back to 1974, only to find somehow the court either was unaware, failed to acknowledge, or worse yet, feels that there is not an existing ordinance precluding that land use as short-term rentals for residential areas. Even more disconcerting was apparently the court felt that a body disproportionately represented by non-residents of the state, let alone the township, deserved more protection than actual residents and voters of the township in this interim. So I know you'll be discussing this issue later in closed session, and I know I represent a large group of folks who are looking forward to a vigorous defense on our behalf to preserve residential neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, anyone else want to comment? All right, hearing or seeing no one else, we'll close public comment. And you have the department reports in front of you. Any comments, questions? Right, hearing none, we will move on to, we have the pleasure of State Representative DeVore being with us. Please.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to be here. It's an exciting place to come to. Always love Park Township. I love your logo. I mean, who doesn't want that red lighthouse? It's the best lighthouse, I think, in the world, certainly in Michigan, and it's the most photographed, and obviously it's great. And I'm really glad they painted it after it was kind of going big pink. So we were all celebrating that with you. What is going on at the state level is kind of interesting. A couple things that are concerning me right now are the energy policies that passed, and the threat to natural gas feels kind of ominous to me. We had a coal plant in Holland, and we chose to close that because it wasn't going to be financially feasible even to augment what we were doing in the natural gas plant. But the natural gas has just been a great answer to the question of affordable, reliable power for this whole area. And it has really done what we wanted and more, and efficiently, economically, everything checks all the boxes. So it was very concerning when I started hearing that. And it seems that the date has been different. Sometimes I hear 2035, sometimes 2050, sometimes 2040 for a deadline for clean energy. And the last I heard that natural gas isn't going to be good unless it has carbon captured sequestration, which is a process we had talked about in connection with the coal plant, that you have to dig tunnels a mile down underneath bedrock and everything to put the carbon in, the carbon of carbon dioxide, which doesn't seem ultra poisonous to me in the first place. But anyway, and putting in the natural gas plant really did so much for our carbon footprint. And it seemed like a great option. So I'm concerned about that possible requirement because that was super, super expensive when we looked into it before. The federal government was going to help us with maybe one or two of those. But otherwise, it's kind of crippling financially to do that. And I'm not even sure if it works on that piece of land. That wasn't part of our consideration in building that plant. So I hope that there's feedback that helps people rethink that possibly. And maybe as that builds, there could be some amendments. And now we are headed into, you probably know, we close session the 9th of November in order to have what they call sine die, which is not the Latin pronunciation, but that's the end of session. And then you have 90 days and whatever legislation was passed will become law. And that's what they wanted. And so the February 27 is set up as the presidential primary for the Democrats. And that was the goal of that. There are also two Democrat House members who ran for mayor in their respective city and won in this last election. So we now actually have a perfectly balanced House, 54-54, with those two seats vacant. So the governor set up a special election, not in connection with the other elections that are already happening. She kind of set up a new set. And so April 16 will be the final decision for those two seats. So until we get to April 16, it will be 54-54 in the House. And so I don't know exactly what that's going to do to our schedule, if they're going to want to have session when we have even sides. In anticipation of this happening, they did pass a law for that the control would stay with the Democrats, as it has, even if it's 54-54, because there was a year where it was perfectly balanced and the Democrats were in charge one month and then the Republicans the next month. And everybody says that they got a whole bunch of things done that year because they really worked together. They had to balance power, and but it looks like they will continue to be in control for this whole session. So we'll see what happens. The schedule was published and it's exactly as normal. So we'll see what happens. I'm not in control. You get to learn that fast. The other thing that concerns me is solar siting, that has been taken over at the state level, that the state board can decide on where to put solar panels, no matter what the local jurisdiction says. And I don't like that idea. I'm sure you don't like that idea. I'm sure your residents don't like that idea. And the very interesting part of it is the trigger for that is not until after the next election. So you will not see any of that until next December 2024. So this will have been passed and sealed and all set up, while all these fields that they want to cover with solar panels, but nobody will see them until after the election day. So that is kind of concerning. I really care about local control. And I really think that people that live in the community understand the dynamics of the community, understand who lives here, the kind of rhythm you want, the kind of balance you want in your community. That's why you took these positions, to try to protect that and to protect the culture of your community. And so it's not a good trend, and I hope it doesn't lead to other types of control at the state level. So once again, it's important to let people know what you think, who may not vote that way, because I think that's very important. So I don't know if you guys have questions for me. I'm always open. Yeah, Steve. No, that's still floating out there. No, that's the other one that concerns me, because I mean, that could easily come up too. Yeah, you hear a lot about possible things that could come up. And if you look at the list of 56, 54 votes, there were a lot of things there was little negotiation, little discussion, and it's just kind of like everybody voted one way, and there we go. So I'm hoping that with this change, maybe we'll be able to talk through some things. Maybe they'll pick some things that there's more agreement on, and then even listen to each other to help come up with something better. Because we all know at the local level, the people you work with and you think with, and you can talk things through. You kind of know the perspective different people come from, and to treat each other decently and with respect and listen to a variety of opinions. That's what makes local government great. And I would try to do that at the state level as much as I can, and build relationships with everybody, whoever they are, and figure out how to get things done that will help the state. I just went to a open house in West Ottawa this past Friday, and they were the project number 16 across the state of connecting manufacturers with the high school. And it's a grant program. The state put 6 million in about 3 years ago. And they also have the Michigan Manufacturing Association and another foundation that partners. And they go in and talk to the local manufacturers and say, what do you need in future employees that we can help prepare them for? And so they set up a program within the high school, and then kids can choose if they'd like to take a few classes in CAD drawing and all these other acronyms I don't understand, but the kids are so excited about it. I love seeing that. I love seeing all their equipment that's been supplied. They train teachers, and they pay for field trips, and it's a whole great program. And that was project number 16 of like 3 years ago. And now they're launching another one for another 16 across the state, and for people to be able to benefit from that. And I just think that is one of the best things we can do in helping our businesses and helping our kids, and then talking to those kids, I was like, wow, what do you like to do? Oh, I just love working my hands, And I said, well, like, what'd you like to do in third grade that would show this is a successful track that people could kind of get a feel for? Why would I like to do this? And he's like, well, I really like to read and everything when I was in third grade. I said, oh, okay. So did that lead you then to this kind of job? Well, he says, I realize that I can't just sit at a desk all the time. I've got to be doing things, and I've got to be working with my hands. So this is exactly what I want to do. And they have a whole class on how to fix things in your house, how to take care of the regular things of life. And I think, we're preparing kids for life. And I'm really glad that the financial literacy law takes effect this coming fall, that kids will learn the basics of finance in their lives. And if we compare that with helping them find a career track and what would really fit them, I think we would really be so much better served for business and for education across the state, because each one will be doing what they feel motivated to do and are excited about doing, and then they'll be equipped to help what the world needs. So it's a pleasure to see those things happening. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, question.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering with our short-term rental, in the past, we've heard the state was considering doing something about it. Has that been put on the back burner for quite a while now?
It's on the back burner for quite a while. I don't know. It's kind of nestled next to aggregates in my mind. And so I don't know, all of a sudden these things pop up and then there you go. So I haven't heard it coming before committee right now. So, but that's definitely something else to watch. Yeah, sure.
Any other questions?
Nancy, thanks for helping guard us from the overreach that's happening in Lansing. They're just trying so hard to take away our responsibilities. And I'm glad that you and Roger are on the front line trying to keep that from happening.
I know. The wonderful thing about Michigan is the variety of all the different kinds of cities. I mean, we have heavy heritage cities, we've got beachfront cities, we've got college towns and everything in between. And they should all be unique and wonderful. And we should be able to define that each little area itself. We don't want every single place to look like anywhere USA. That's Soviet. So I'll keep fighting for that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you much.
Yes, my pleasure.
Now we're going to move on to action items. Action item A, the banking depository resolution. You, I'm sure, have read this. Treasurer Steger, do you have any comments?
Just Connie's doing a really good job. She's really the investment officer that we've kind of appointed. These are a list of what she's been doing. We are governed by PA 20 of how we can invest and what we can invest in. She follows that strictly. As you can see in one of our budget adjustment items tonight, she's been doing a great job of getting higher interest. So that's been great, but we do this every year. We're required to approve these depositories.
All right, we will look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Any discussion?
I'll just make one comment. You may not be aware, but Comerica is ranked with a rank of 4, but they're really in financial trouble. So I would suggest that they be on the bottom of the list. I think it's appropriate that they're okay that they're on our approved list, and I would hesitate to use them directly unless there's reasons to go there.
I will let her know if she doesn't already.
She's here.
Oh, she's
Yeah.
kind of.
Any other comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we're going to look at the budget adjustment. Our resident expert is here. Would you like to make any comments? Or answer any questions?
I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay. All right. So you all saw this as written, and we will look to approve the attached resolution. Does anyone have any comment or questions for Connie? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion.
Make a motion to approve the proposed budget adjustments.
Support.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, summer tax collection agreement.
Yeah, we do this every year also. This is for the school ISD, Howland Public, West Ottawa. They pay us per parcel to collect the summer taxes. We've always gone with $2.87 until last year. Area townships and municipalities got together and discussed, you know, it's been that way for years. We need to increase it. We raised it last year to $3.25 a parcel, and we're okay keeping it at that price this year.
look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Support.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we're gonna move on to the community park prairie space. At our work session, we had a really, I really like the presentation that we had. Unfortunately, you could not be here, but, yeah, and it was nice to hear from all the birders that were here and gave their input as well. And as you saw all the emails as well. So you see the presentation here, the recommendation to consider development in the community park. I guess we'll do a little bit differently. We'll either, if someone has any questions or discussion comments to make, that would be great. If someone wants to make a motion, that would be fine as well.
So if I may,
Please.
the presentation and the plan are absolutely excellent. I have a question as to whether or not we want to devote that many acres, 35 acres, to short grass prairie. And in view of all the other things that we're doing with this park, I think we need to re-examine how much we want to cover.
And in case you don't remember, and those in the audience, if this gets converted to prairie, the expectation is no one walks on the prairie. There's paths around it to observe the butterflies, the birds, etc., the wildlife that's there, but not to disturb it. So just so everyone understands why we're talking about the size of it.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may. Just clarification, I had trustee DeHaan asked me for a calculation, and the big map in front of you outlines that calculation. And essentially what was asked for was that if we go ahead with converting all of this land to prairie butterfly birding habitat, how much of it would potentially be throwaway, meaning that later on after the fact, we would then do something else with it, or it would end up being developed in a different manner. And so what would the difference be between what you have here and what was on the master plan essentially? And you can see that the difference would be 0.2 plus or minus acres in the green area, and then in the orange area of 5.5 acres. So that is the potential impact. And then, so I just wanted to explain that.
My question was, we're talking future possibility of a maintenance building. Have we taken that area into consideration of not putting into prairie?
No. Do you want me to answer why? Okay, sure. The why is that in terms of the total cost of the project, breaking it down in terms of that per acre area where we would not develop because there's some future potential would be a very small negligible cost, given that they're already out there in terms of mobilization. And that's one element of it, but even a bigger element of it is we may not realize the maintenance facility or these other improvements for quite some time. And so it seems more appropriate and more aesthetically pleasing to the community to do it all now. And then as we build out the park, those areas would be taken away. But thank you for the question.
I'm looking at this map. Can you explain the map? You said it, but I'm not sure what the 0.2 plus or minus acres.
So when we originally did the master plan from McKenna and we had this map, the question was, what is the difference between the additional space for butterfly and birding habitats as it related to the master plan? And that is the difference that you see.
Just give me a number.
The plus or minus 0.2 and then the 5.5.
So the +2, Jim, is the green area.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the orange area was where the other 5.5 comes into play. So you're looking at the community building, the pond,
Right.
and then the wildflower. I'm found that's that up here.
So you're
The
saying
pink is
that
wildflower.
future dedicated drone and RC flight area is 0.2 acres?
No. What I'm saying is that the difference between the original master plan map and this map, there's more prairie land dedicated on this map than was on the original master plan acreage. And that is the difference. Those numbers are the differences. Because Mr. Dahan wanted to know what was the potential, if we go forward with this project, there's a cost to this project. What of those resources are we just effectively throwing away? And that's the difference.
Aren't we throwing away resources if we plant a prairie and go through all those machinations and that 2-year waiting period and all this stuff happens, then we decide to put a building there?
Yes.
Okay.
I think, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The question I have is, is it wildflower or is it prairie in perpetuity? And, I don't want to handcuff the next generation. And the next generation might say, hey, in 2050, we need to have a ball diamond on this property. I think we'd have to make sure that we don't in perpetuity say this is forever. Because we don't know what the forever needs are in 20, 50, 70, or whatever years beyond we're living. And the second question, follow-up question is, the activity on the site is pretty fluid. I mean, we come here during the summer and there's those parachutes and occasional balloon. And what I read in the document is that it's you don't walk on it. And that concerns me, is that we just have taken access away from a property that we've said we're going to provide access to. And a drone or RC flight goes crashing down into the middle of that green spot, and they're basically saying, you can't go there. And again, we wouldn't say that, and people go get their RC plane, but you're actually saying it's almost a no-fly zone or no walk zone. And I have a hard time with that much restriction on a piece of property that we said is going to be fairly fluid. Now, we have trails through it, and that's a beautiful thing, but we have to have a little bit of a compromise on access to this property. I mean, so anyway, that's my comment about as I look at this, so many acres.
That was my thought. The last thing I want to do is, we had property that people couldn't use. We do this, now we're telling people, now we have more property we can't use.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful property.
Yeah,
I mean,
beautiful.
yeah, the birds like it. That's delightful. I mean, it's a delightful opportunity for us to consider, but I think we have to be careful how much we dedicate to it.
Right. Well, I think that comment is really an opinion by the birders that would support this prairie. What we decide to do with it here, I think is up to us. If we want to give them free rein to walk through that property, I think we can do that.
Yeah, that'll be true.
And I would support it.
Yeah.
And maybe we make 2-foot wide paths through some of the areas.
Mhm.
you can understand the position they're coming from. They want as much of it undisturbed as they can, because as you disturb it, you disturb the wildlife.
And we do, and Terry, we do have a problem. We have a site that has invasive species that we have to take care of somehow. I mean, that we do have an issue, and part of the issue or solution that they provide is a 2-3 year period of fixing the invasive species problem that we have. So we have to thank them for that. I rather have beautiful wildflowers than invasive species that we have to cut down all the time.
So does anyone have a motion that might be a suggestion?
Does it make sense to reconsider in some way how much should or shouldn't be, or whether I'll keep it in now? Is there an opportunity maybe for table and further discussion around how much should or shouldn't be?
Yes.
As compared to voting on something that I'm not gathering a whole lot of consensus on.
I would agree with Brian. I think we need to throw it back at the staff for a couple solutions. And if there's a solution that's less restrictive, I haven't heard that solution yet. So,
I mean, it feels to me like the top part of, if you will, the map, kind of where that one path comes across north. It feels like, yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer, but from there south, I start to question and wonder, to the points that have been made, are we really kind of starting to define how a large part of the park is going to get used by it being like that?
You're defining it, and that's our role to some extent.
Yeah.
But I mean, personally, I look at the map and say that north section, north of that
It's almost like if you
purple
drill
path is ideal, and
Yeah.
everything south
couldn't
is
agree with you more. Yeah.
not.
It's almost like
And
the
then
north side of
wildflowers
that
down around here.
line, the drone path, if you will. If you said from that point north, and some area around the pickleball courts, and even where the potential future courts are going to be, if you did all that area now, it would certainly make it very attractive in the future, probably long before we would ever consider adding more pickleball courts.
Yeah, the only thing with around the pickleball courts, my guess is you're gonna get a lot of kids
You're gonna get
running
some
around.
traffic.
Sure.
You're gonna get more traffic there.
So to have a
But
buffer of some kind.
Yeah.
And then as what Peter said, till we have a community center, we can put it down at this corner,
Absolutely.
and then,
Would certainly make it more attractive than what it is today.
Yes.
right.
Especially.
So my point is, does it make sense to reconsider along those lines and make some proposals around kind of that definition, more of area, and bring it back next month?
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
So we have a more exact number to vote on as far as cost. Is that what you're asking for? Just so I'm
I
understanding.
think I'm not even so much concerned, I mean, I'm always concerned about cost, but just that there's more consensus around what we're defining as kind of that prairie land area. Because I don't want it to go all to prairie land and someone think that there's a taking away that happens in the future when we do, like if the drone area turns to just mowed yard, if you will. At least to get some kind of definition out there.
And it might be a situation where even on the dedicated drone area, maybe you could dip down,
There's a line,
you could dip
right?
down into a third of that area, and half the drone area is dedicated prairie space. But I think there's a couple of different options, and I think Howard and team could throw some numbers at us next month and drawings. And
So how many of these paths
I
do we
don't
already
know.
have in place?
I think they're,
Pretty much all of
I think
them,
they're all in place right now.
except for that
Okay.
one of that bottom one is sort of not really built yet,
Yes.
but some of it is. But the paths of the paths that are there are either fully constructed or partially constructed, but they're all in place. I'm happy to bring back a proposal or two for the next meeting. And I think that that's wise, but And the reason why I would say not to try to rush it for tonight to vote on something is so that I can verify with the birding community if there's any impacts that I'm not thinking about. So again, I don't have those experts in front of me, and I can't, I mean, this is just not something that I'm very well versed in. So, but yeah, I'm hearing your thoughts.
And I'll just make a further comment. Got to cover it with something.
Sure we do. We do.
Yeah,
Sure we
this is
do.
This is fairly
Inexpensive
inexpensive.
from a coverage point of view, and
Yeah.
absolutely the best maintenance scenario we could.
Right,
Consider.
so I, you know, I
Yeah.
think we need to think about that. If we're not going to do something for 3 or 4 years.
Oh,
you
We
know,
should, then this
Why,
is the way.
why
we should
would,
go.
why would we put grass there
oh,
and have to mow it and all that stuff?
Yeah.
You know, which is gonna be again, probably 3 times the cost to install over this.
Oh, yeah.
So to destroy some of it, you know, down the road may not be all that expensive.
However, they said it takes 3 years to
It
look
does.
example.
Well, just to answer your question, the reason we might put grass there, inexpensive grass, is so people can be on it.
Yeah.
And so they can plan it, so they can go fly a kite on it.
Sure.
I mean, that's the point of it.
Yeah.
It's not to say, we're gonna put wildflowers here so you can't use it.
Yeah.
So
Run your dog, or
Good point.
throw a
Good
ball with your
observation.
dog, or throw a football.
Right.
Yep.
Do we need a motion to table this with a recommendation for the manager?
So-
Come back.
Yeah,
Sure.
so
I'll
I
make
would,
that motion.
yeah, I'd move that we postpone a vote on this and that we direct the manager to look at an alternate proposal. I'm sorry, Dan, were you trying to make a motion?
She was.
I'll support that.
That's why she asked the question. Right, any discussion? Right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Okay, now the historic hangar. We don't have any numbers, correct?
We do not have any numbers. Sorry that I was
That's right.
texting as, I apologize. That was not appropriate. We don't have any numbers, Mr. Supervisor, but we do have some folks in the audience that are here. So we do have some folks in the audience that are here. We do have updated plans for you all. And so we are prepared to have a conversation for tonight as to what we are doing and the process. So if I may call somebody up.
Sure.
Ryan, do you want to come on up? So Ryan Krutoff?
You're close,
Krydoff?
Yep.
Ryan is from Hookstra Electric. And Ryan has prepared the electrical drawings that Chad is passing out. Along with, we have the drawings related to the bathroom facilities. And are the plumbing and mechanicals in there? Good.
The only problem, you know, that's like mistake they had either with a whole building.
Right, but if we can, if you can find a way to let us have that heater for the whole building, we'll put it right back in. Sure. And so one of the things that has been challenging, and Chad is actually working on it with his building official colleagues throughout West Michigan, is what we have is we have a historic structure, not historic in the sense that it's on a registry, but a much older structure. And in order to upgrade that structure, generally speaking, you have to be in compliance with the state of Michigan Energy Code. And so Chad had indicated to me this afternoon that he was working with his colleagues to see if there's some opportunities where we can actually have some conditioned space in that facility and not have to bring everything up to the code. And the reason for that is because ultimately, if we were to do that, we would have to insulate the outside and the inside of the building, which would remove that brick look that we also like. So Chad, you can give an update on that. And we also, if you have any questions for both Ryan and or Chad.
Yeah, I'm just trying to work on the renovation code and try to make that work and see what we can do. It's difficult since it's not an actual designated historic building. So. And that's for the energy code, but like Howard said.
In general, everything that we are doing, now I have talked in the past about this being a music venue, and yes, I still have plans, and we still have plans to have concerts out of this venue. One thing I want to be clear on is when I say it's a music venue, that doesn't mean that's the only thing we're using it for. Everything that we are doing is preparing this building for a community facility so that the board, we can use it for various purposes. And so the bathrooms, they're bringing it up to assembly code. The lighting is bringing it up to the ability to have assembly use in the building, the plumbing, all of that. It's not specific to a music venue, but it will function nicely in that way. And so, you know, if for whatever reason we want to use it for an art class, or if it gets to the point where we think about even renting it out to the community, those are all options that are still on the table.
So one of the points of this is, it's a building that if we can find use for it, it's going to be less expensive than if we build a building. So, and the other benefit is the bathrooms there are going to be usable from people in the park. They don't have to access the building to use the bathroom, so there's benefit there as well. Any questions?
No, I just have a comment. I talked to Howard and Chad about this a little bit. I was glad they put like a kitchen counter in with a sink. In case there's some eating or something there, you know, just that. And that the right side of the building is the only heated area, correct?
Correct.
So, that was good to put that all on that one side. I like the plan.
You quickly mentioned, or Chad mentioned that we have not designated as a historic building. Is that a very difficult thing? Designation to get, is it would be advantageous for us to have? Yeah. 7 years?
I've never been part of one, but once you do that, you're locked into what it is, and doing any renovations, you have to follow the state commissions in charge of it. It turns into.
Okay, can you scratch that question?
Yeah. If
There's one element of the building code that gives you some flexibility, and then the rest of it is it's all negatives. So, yep. But I think, Chad, we're working on it. We're working on
Yeah,
it.
if it was like a historic courthouse where you were gonna keep it in the same use, that would help probably a lot.
One of the reasons why, just so you all know, just a little bit of building regulations 101, or maybe in this case 202, is that the reason why this is all necessary is we really cannot use that building unless we do what we're doing. That building is classified as airplane storage. And so the only lawful use is airplane storage. And so essentially, and I think the building code allows for like some little one-off exceptions or whatnot, but we can't really reutilize that building until we go through this process. And that is the reason why we have to have the electrical drawings. That's the reason why we had to have an engineering analysis. That's the reason why we have to go through all of this, regardless of what we do with it, so that we are allowed to have what they call a change of use in the building code.
The only comment I'd like to make, and certainly not taking anything away from the plan, because the township is looking into a community center, we've been investigating all kinds of different layouts and configurations. One of the ones we did this past couple of weeks ago was the Holland Aquatic Center. And they've really rethought the whole area around bathrooms and how bathrooms can be done very effectively and safely. So that you don't have quote unquote a confined space that could end up being troublesome as compared to useful. I would highly encourage someone, yourself or whoever, to get over to the Holland Aquatic Center and talk to someone there about what they're doing. I think you might find it easier and more cost effective to lay this out, taking advantage of some of the things that they've learned and kind of how they've done that. It was eye-opening.
Excellent suggestion. Thank you,
Yeah.
sir. Thank you.
Who is there a person?
Yeah, I'll let you know. Jack, well, I'll get with Jack.
Yeah, I just, if you have an opportunity at all, highly recommend it. Yeah.
Comment that I know we're very focused on the building per se. In the setting that we have, there's some buildings around it that will come down and strip. I think we have to step back and say, how do we want to be looked at as landscape wise? It's pavement, the whole thing is just all pavement around it. Is this the setting where, around it, long term, you end up pulling some of that pavement away on the roadside and create some more greenery on it versus a very stark hangar looking type project. So I throw that out as the beauty factor going into it. It's going to be a beautiful building, but a little green space around it. I think well accepted.
Are we looking to reclassify the use group as a assembly or what do we,
Yes, sir.
what would be the occupancy on?
Oh, boy, it was the.
150?
147. There was two groups there because the other little room was different. And
Okay.
I can't read the,
I'm just worried about
Yeah.
the sprinklering issue.
no, that's what we were trying to stay under.
Yeah, good, thank
So,
you.
Yeah, because if we did that, then
Then it's gonna go way up.
yeah, we'd have to cut a little hole in the change purse, get the rest of the money out.
I have to run a new water line for
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach Road.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And then also too, I forgot Howard and I talked about the parking lot. We were keeping all that pavement right now, so we have some makeshift parking lot until like the community center is complete, and then we'd have more parking built into the site. But that was kind of our cheap, paint some lines on it and have some parking.
Good solution. I mean,
Yeah, but I hear you.
Yeah, it is ugly.
Any other questions? I guess I'd like to have a motion from the board to consider continue pursuing this. It does cost the township some money. So I want to have the board on board if this is okay to continue.
I make a motion that we continue the investigation on the community.
Support.
Any other questions, discussion?
All right, although this is continued investigation and research, not actual physical construction.
No, that would have to come before the board and we'd have to vote on that.
That's one clarifying.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
That's good.
Yep. All right. Any other question, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we're gonna do the farmland preservation committee makeup. We'll see, manager Fink did a good job with this and put my name on it. I give credit where credit is due. But I thought he did a good job with the makeup. And I guess we'll have you all decide on if you think that's a good job with the makeup. And if so, we will vote on that and then we'll move towards getting some members. And I will add this. I know it says someone from the planning commission, someone from the board of trustees. I would like to see the person that heads up this committee not be one of those two people. Personally, but I guess ultimately that committee gets to decide who's heading it up. So. All right, so we'll look for a motion.
Anytime we can involve the community in these decisions is a good deal. So I make a motion that we approve the proposed committee makeup of the farm preservation.
Support.
Any other questions, discussion? Right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, very good.
Hello, Skip. How can I help?
We can't. All right. We're gonna move on to the community development assistant, full-time position. This is the managerial request, so Manager Fink, if you would speak to this.
Yeah, so as you may or may not know, our code enforcement officer left us recently to take on a full-time position. And after that happened, I began to really think through the wisdom of looking at a part-time position in this labor economy. The labor market is incredibly tight for these type of professional roles. I don't think that's going to change. There is a tremendous cost when we look at training an individual and then that individual leaving. And then the reality is that there is plenty of work to be done in the planning and development department, community development department. One of the things that has happened over the last 7 years that I've been here is, we often talk about these big projects. We talk about the master plan or we talk about STRs. And certainly there's a legitimate question to say, well, what happens when master plan and STRs are complete? And that is a legitimate question. The reality has been in the last 7 years that I've been here and my history in local government is there always is the next big project. Prior to the master plan process, somebody would have said the airport is a huge project. I remember spending many hours in the evening, 3, 4 in the morning, staying here all night working on those planning processes. Prior to the airport, a huge planning project that was undertaken was the zoning issues related to Mac Park. That was months, almost a year's worth of effort to solve that issue with the zoning disputes in that area. Not along with all of the NHPs. My point in all of this is to say that even when the next big project is complete, we are reaching a time point in our community's history where we have a lot of planning development issues that keep coming up. Farmland preservation. I didn't put Mika on that farmland preservation memo because I can no longer ask her to do more. She is taxed and she is at capacity. I cannot keep adding something to her plate. It would not be appropriate. So there is no question that the work is there. We have a community of 18,000 people and we have one planner, and that planner does both the Planning Commission and the ZBA. Those are two public bodies in addition to all of the development review and all of the planning that goes on top of that. I think it is something that is needed. I think that the work is there, and I would like to have the flexibility of having that position full time so that I'm not in a situation where I'm scrambling looking for somebody else. Now, if somebody comes along and would like to have it as a part-time at 25 to 30 hours a week, probably more like 30 or 29 hours a week, because when we hit the 30 number, then we move into the benefits equation. I'm certainly going to take that option. I think that's a good, solid option for the township, and it's good for our financial picture as well. But I would like to have the ability to have that as a full-time option should it be necessary, and should the right candidate come about that is looking for full-time work. It's going to be difficult to find the right part-time person. That's my request to you all. I understand that debate and deliberation on that issue is appropriate.
I just have one question. Started this off by announcing our code enforcement officer has accepted another job. Are you anticipating this person serving as the code enforcement officer as well?
No, sir.
Okay.
Meaning that was one of the impetuses that led me to begin to think through what is the wisdom in hiring on a part-time basis. So. good point in asking that question as to why I see that. Okay, thank you.
Or in the past, we've had a zone, a planning group help us. I believe his name was Greg, from years past. Are there groups, I mean, our township, obviously 18,000 folks with a lot of activity. Other townships, municipalities don't have the options that we have. How do they get by in this contractual situation? If we were to say contract that particular role that you have with the planning group, is that also an option? I hesitate hiring another FTE. That's my, I'll just say that up front. FTEs are, once you have them, they don't leave. I mean,
Sure, fair enough. So no, not for this type of position. If we did actually bring on a consultant, so the planning commission is now working with a consultant on the master plan process. Every year you all budget for consultancy services for planning, and we can take some load off of Mika by increasing those consultancy services and having a consultant planner do some of those processes. And again, we've just recently brought on a consultant for our planning services. This kind of position is really going to be helping get residents responded to much quicker, the packets out, ads written, small development reviews that come in that can be outsourced to not Mika having to review all of the permits, but you know, smaller type of permits. So those are items that you wouldn't necessarily contract to a consultant.
Is there then an offset of less consultancy? Sorry, thanks. Is there an offset of less consultant work would be done if this person was on board?
I think that there is, yes, I think that that would give Mika the ability to focus more on those planning, ideation, thinking kind of situations.
So it would offload Mika with some of the task, whatever you want to call it, so that then she could focus on more valuable things that would typically have been done by a consultant if Mika is out of bandwidth.
Correct. And the reason why I went away from the consultant planner in the first place is not because I don't think a consultant planner is a valuable resource, but because I want the person that we are interacting with on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, to be having those conversations and those policy discussions with the planning commission, as opposed to somebody who comes in once a month and is not really understanding of what's happening day to day in our community. And so I thought that the community would be best served by having more full-time staff in that department as opposed to bringing in the contract person. Now, I realize I'm the one who brought in Greg Ransford a number of years ago and contracted it out. And I think in retrospect, it would have been it's a better option at this point to stay with the full-time staff, because I think it serves the community better, because the individual gets to really understand how things click and how things work.
Would it be an unfair question of mine to ask our financial expert how this is going to impact our budget in future years?
Not at all.
That's your job.
Not at all.
So we did look at the costs that would be resulting from a full-time position. And now I think the tax base is very strong, and I think Howard mentioned to you in a manager report or something that taxable value is increasing 8.5% next year. So that gives us a nice bump right off the top. So, you know, I'm very, very conservative in my estimates, and I feel that there is enough room in the budget to accommodate this position as a full-time.
Without eating up all of the additional, I mean, it's not like all the addition is going to go to this thing. It's still plenty of additional.
Correct. As things stand now. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. If things stay the way they are today, would you still feel confident about it?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And the 83,000, does that include benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment. I've been here a long time and I've seen us under both formats with full-time in the office and also a consultant coming in 2 days a week. Residents were not real happy when they come in and there's not somebody here. I think our residents' service is number one for our residents. And I think they really feel that they're being listened to and heard if we have people in the office. So I really see the difference between the two. And I can verify that the workload here is really heavy on all of our employees. And I think this would be a good move.
I'll just add that we've done a marvelous job over the years in this township in cross-training people. So another set of hands to cover the front desk when it's needed and things like that just gives a little more breathing room to the entire staff.
Yeah.
So I'd be very much in favor of this.
I guess the only thing I would ask, if we were to go forward with this, clearly articulate the goal is to offload Mika so she can do more of value, right? That there's
And less consultation.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're really missing here tonight is really a job description. And I think we need to see that shortly, not that that would delay us making a decision tonight. But we need to see what that job description looks like and what this person's really gonna be responsible for and how she's gonna fill her position. She or he.
That job description was, you can get that to the board, which, so you know, that was in the previous packet.
Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll look for a motion.
So I'm sorry, just follow on that. Did I miss it? So you're saying there was a job description in?
Last month when I brought this position to the board, initially, we had included, I don't know if it was a complete job description, but we had included a number of tasks within this position, and that wouldn't necessarily change, but I can get that to the board as well.
We'll look for a motion.
So I move we accept the manager's recommendation and that we hire a full-time assistant for the community development director.
The one modification I would, before I support that, we're very specific on a specific rate. I would like to have more of a range on the salary. So, I mean, it says 83,000. I mean, I think we need to have flexibility. If someone doesn't have the experience, they're at a lower rate. You know, I think we locked ourselves into a number too quickly. And I think we ought to put a range on that salary range.
I would suggest we have a salary administration plan.
Yes.
You know, and I guess Howard would need to let us know where that person would slot in
Yes.
in that plan.
We were thinking initially, the base salary was 50 or 55? 50. We were thinking the base salary would be 50, around that number. And then the 83 is the benefit side of it.
The roll up. Okay.
Correct. And then I could either ask Mark Notley to update that position as the next time I contact him for, you know, just give us an update of this person, this type of an employee. And I can also at the very next board meeting or in my next manager's report, give you a sense of what I think that 10-year or 10-step trajectory looks like.
I'm fine. That'd be fine. It's a little ambiguous because we
Yeah,
don't have the
then
job description in front of us.
I'll just go ahead and amend that motion then to include what Howard said, that he will go to our consultant and come back with a salary that has been recommended.
Would you like in the motion to put the flexibility to hire full-time? Cause he did say if he finds somebody, that wasn't full-time, you
Yeah.
just want the word flexibility.
Yeah, I want the flexibility to have that. If we find somebody who is desiring to work 4 days a week and will stay under that 30-hour mark, I think that's a fantastic solution for both parties. But I don't want to tie myself in that to that perspective. Yeah, tie my hand.
Then I would modify the motion to say we accept his recommendation and allow him to hire an additional assistant up to full-time.
Right.
Okay. I'm gonna have a great time writing these minutes.
Support.
Sport.
Any other questions, discussion, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.
Right. Let's see, we've been fighting about Ottawa Beach Road, non-motorized pathway, we have to have a bid. There were a number of bids. And so you can see the bid before you. Last minute, so thank you, but. We will. For a motion. For this project.
I'm missing that. Is it in the packet? What
It
page
was,
was,
I'll give it to
or
you.
is it, or was it a handout?
It was an addition.
Oh, was it edition mailed or emailed?
It should have been put on your dais.
Oh,
It was emailed.
Okay.
Recent.
all right, here you go.
Yeah, where's he from?
The next page, those are the.
That was the board.
bids.
Okay. Yeah, I've got that.
This is the, Mr. Supervisor, Mr. Dunn just asked where this was. This is the sidewalk between Counts Cove and
The next road.
the next road, which is the road I can never think of.
It didn't
Forest
say-
Drive?
It didn't describe that, that's what it sounds like. Right? I figured it was it.
Make motion to accept the bid for Kurt Young at $49,808 for construction of this non-motorized path.
Support.
Any questions, discussion, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. So good work done tonight. Thank you. Now we're not done yet though. So we're gonna move on to discussion items. I just wrote up a brief summary on the manager's review. You can see that before you. This is really more informational tonight. Next month, we will use this information to vote on the manager's compensation for the January 11 meeting. So any comments, questions? All right. We will move on to the next thing, which is the policy board review. You have 2 chapters there. And the manager had an additional paper about what he thought might be good. First of all, why don't we start off this way? Did anyone have any comments of their own about the 2 chapters and what they might want to change?
I have just some editorial type things of word choice on a few places. That I can get to the manager and he can just run it through. They're not anything established other than On township administration, item number 7, board administration, last sentence. I would recommend that we change that strategic planning session where the board goals are 1 to 3 to 5 years are established. Rather than just 1 year.
What page are you on?
I'm sorry, I'm on page
98.
4.
98. Bottom of the page.
98.
And he's talking about
98.
board administration.
I can't
And
read
he's
it.
saying strategic planning should be 1, 3, and 5 years.
Okay.
Hang on, I can tell you.
Board
Last sentence, first paragraph.
Yeah. 98.
Okay.
It'd be page 98, I guess.
You're saying for 1, 3, and 5 year?
And I would say, where the board's goals and objectives are 1 to 3 years, I'm sorry, 1 and 3 to 5 years. Goals and objectives are established.
Just a comment, we can't very well make a 5-year plan because there'll be a different board in 4 years.
That doesn't mean the strategic planning, this board would not establish a strategic plan.
We can certainly
After 3 to 5 years,
establish a 5-year plan that somebody else will just kick out.
I mean, why would we just do a plan for 1 year?
I submit the 1 to 3 would be great. Absolutely. I just think that
I can buy that, I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying.
right.
Thank you.
It's another
Appreciate it.
board.
You would just- 1 to 3
Yep.
is adequate.
Well, if we're gonna use that logic, that means if the board has been in for 3 years and we do the next strategic plan, we're moving in on the next board's territory. So,
But
I'm fine with it.
establishing the direction that
Right,
this
I'm
board
fine.
would like to have it proceed. Future boards can make their own decisions.
Right, but I agree with that. I don't have a problem with a 5-year plan. But if we're gonna use the logic of using 1 to 3, that only works for the first year. So,
What would be wrong with saying 1 to 3 or as appropriate? And the only reason I say that too, because there's gonna be times we might make a decision on something that has a millage attached to it that might be an implication for the next decade,
Right.
right?
Sure.
Right.
and a plan is a plan. It's not a contract.
Correct.
Right. I stand corrected. That's fine.
So how would you state that?
I just say 1 to 3 or as appropriate.
I'm good with that.
All right, what else?
I'm looking at the manager's suggested changes. And it's my opinion that all the agenda items that come to this board should come from the supervisor.
Mhm.
So I'm having a little struggle with your wording.
You should read the actual policy as it exists today.
What page is that?
98.
98. Oh, there it is, yep.
You changing that whole and the following paragraph.
I'm saying add that paragraph to the beginning.
At this point, the supervisor is not involved
Correct,
with the agenda.
correct.
According to this, but in actuality, I make the.
In actuality, the policy doesn't say that.
Right, you know,
Well,
but I-
the board policy should say that. My question is always, when something comes to this board, did it come from the supervisor?
Correct. I agree with you, Mr. Peter,
Yeah.
clerk. I absolutely, first of all, I believe statutorily.
That's correct.
There's nothing on the agenda that goes out. I shouldn't say nothing. I'm sure there are a few administrative items here or there that I've added. But there is nothing for the most part that goes out on the agenda that Jim has not seen or heard. And so that is literally why I wrote the paragraph that I did, is to say that whoever the supervisor is has control of the agenda. If there is a disagreement, the policy part of the agenda is the supervisors, no question. The administrative part of the agenda should be the manager. So for example, if a budget amendment needs to come in front of the board and for whatever reason, there are townships where there's tremendous conflict. And if for whatever reason, the supervisor says, I'm not putting that on the agenda, the manager should have the ability to say, no, that is an administrative item. It needs to be voted on for the proper functioning of our community. And if there's any further disagreement, then that disagreement would go to the attorney and the attorney would make a recommendation to the board at their next regular meeting. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that nothing on an agenda should go out without the supervisor approving it, because ultimately it is the supervisor's agenda.
Then I quarrel with the word jurisdiction.
What did I say?
The way this reads, the supervisor has jurisdiction on items brought before the board that are of policy nature, and the manager on items of an administrative nature. The manager doesn't have that jurisdiction. That's the word I'm quarreling with.
I could certainly change that. I see what you're saying.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah. How about Jim and I come up with something that would be different and change that language, and then we could bring it back to the next meeting?
I'd be considerably more comfortable.
Certainly.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead with the sentiment that we've talked about, but work through the language.
Yeah. Always keep the red book in mind.
The red book, what's the red book?
Statutory.
Oh.
Statutory. Exactly.
Got it. No,
Board.
it's the reason I wrote that paragraph is because statutorily, the agenda is the supervisors.
No, it's not.
No?
There is nothing statutorily about agendas.
Really?
Correct, but the red book points that out. There's nothing in law about the agenda or whose responsibility it is. You can establish it by policy. The supervisor is the chair of the meetings and he controls the meetings, or she controls the meetings. And so you would kind of assume that maybe under Robert's Rules of Order, that's who would do it. But there's nothing in state law with respect to townships.
Thank you. I stand corrected.
We'll still come up with something for a policy though.
Thank you.
All right. Any other changes that people want to consider?
Yeah, I got one more. Trying to find it on what page it is. If I find it's different. Okay, well, I have page township board meetings. Has to do with. It states audio tapes of township meetings will be preserved until such time as the minutes by the board of the trustees are approved. I think we modified that and we now have videos and we're keeping those for a year.
Right, so that, yeah, that's adequate language.
Change it to a year.
Where is
Yeah,
it?
well, yeah, and I think,
Audio tape, take that out.
yeah, audio tape has to come out, and I think, we maintain our videos for a year. I'm trying to remember the wording of the motion when we did this.
So we have to take that whole sentence out.
Yeah, I'd suggest a rewrite.
Videos of all township meetings shall be preserved for 1 year. That what I'm understanding.
I think it's 1 year, but I think we need to look at the motion to see if it's calendar year or running 12 months. Right.
I think it was a running 12.
I think it is.
Any other changes?
Well, maybe we got back to it.
Hearing none. We will make some changes and bring that back to the board for approval.
Are we all in agreement with the manager's suggestions?
I think it's gonna come back to us.
Well, let's talk about, I forgot about those, thank you. Let's talk about the section 4, 5, and 10. We'll go to section 4. Let's see, 96 and 97. What's the meaning behind this leading those different functions?
Deleting them. So, correct, but but the question becomes, who chooses them? So I always think of this, and again, this is not something that I feel very strongly about, so I'm comfortable leaving it alone, just so you all know, but I would say that if you were to have a delineation, again, it's the delineation between policy and administration. And so, for example, who we use as an engineer ultimately ends up being very administratively focused, right? We currently our main engineer is Brian and Newhoff, but we use other engineering firms for other things, and we don't bring that to the board. We don't bring those appointments to say, are we using Prine and Newhoff, or are we using Fishback, or are we using another firm? And the same is true of planners, right? Right now, we're getting some planning consultancy services for the community center group. That may come in front of the board for a completely different reason, because it is not included in our budget, but we wouldn't necessarily ask the board who to choose in terms of those planning services. And so I think those two individuals, to me, feel more about administration of the departments, and the attorney and the auditor feel more of the board's appointments from a policy perspective. Again, it is not that big of a deal to me, but if I was going through and reading it, those are the changes that I would look at.
I think the 3-4 words prior to that is including, but it reserves the right to itself the authority to appoint. Reserves, so we do have it,
Of course you do.
Yeah, we ultimately have the right, so I don't think we ought to take that out. I mean,
Okay.
it's not something that, there is flexibility, you have it,
Yeah.
and there's also flexibility that we as a board have it.
Right.
So I think we can both win on that.
That's
So
fine.
I'd leave it in.
And how about section 5? The next section. Deleting planning consultant services, which is the 5th line down. The first full sentence, these contracts include general legal services, planning consultant services, health insurance, liability insurance, etc.
And again, same rationale that I had from before. We don't bring all planning consulting services to the board. And so we just don't.
If
So
it says this, why haven't we?
What's that?
If it says it in our
Oh.
policy that we do that, why haven't we?
that's a good question. If you look at the purchasing policy, it conflicts it. So you have in your budget that you have identified planning consulting services in your budget. In your budget, it also identifies that you have dollars available for master plan consultancy services. We didn't bring to the board who we're choosing. We established what we were doing based on the budget that you created and the policy that you set. I didn't see that when I was analyzing that issue a number of months ago. I did not see that planning consulting services are under contracts. But it
Why don't we do this? Let's compare it to the other section where there was conflict, and we'll fix them both. And make sure that they're equal.
Sure.
They're in sync.
I think The last sentence, when in doubt, a board member shall request that the board terms of the contract is considered administrative or legislative. Would that give you the flexibility to say, okay, he'd like to see the planning documents or the planning contracts? I mean, isn't that our, how? I mean, I don't know. Request. See, like this.
Yeah. I mean, the board can request anything, right? I mean, the board has authority over everything. You know, ultimately, if four members of the board agree, then that's the way it goes. But the question that comes up from a manager's perspective and from staff is what has to come in front of you. And things coming in front of you do take time, resources, energy. And sometimes it's just not something that the board has the knowledge or the expertise to actually vote on. And so it becomes challenging to bring things in front of the board that are not of a legislative policy nature. It's
Well, we just need to get our documents synced.
sure.
All right, and then last, section 10, regular board meetings. Oh, yeah, we talked about that one. So, all right, good. So we'll try to make some changes and then we'll vote on that next meeting. Sound okay? All right. Yeah. All right. Now, thank you, Trustee DeHaan, for bringing this, having desire to do this. Obviously, there's some changes that need to be made, so thank you. All right, now we are going to look for a motion to go to closed session.
I move that we go into closed session and that we use the language in the agenda to write up the minutes. Do I have to do these in?
Well, I was gonna say, are you planning to come back out and then go back into closed session? Because there are two different closed sessions. As long as you stay in for these two reasons, and one is the specific pending litigation, which is specified in the agenda. And the second is an attorney-client privilege memo. And so that's items, I think now 11 and 12. Rather than coming back.
Can we legally do that, stay in session? Then with the board's permission, I will use this language that we have before us as my motion and also in the minutes.
Support.
And it has to be a roll call.
It's just gonna.
So, Mr. DeHaan,
Yes.
Trustee Cerny,
Yes.
Madam Treasurer,
Yes.
Trustee Spluwell,
Yes.
Trustee Jones.
Yes.
The clerk votes yes. Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
Motion carried.
We're gonna go to the inner.
Yes.
Inner room.
Right.
Right, that part, that's sort of thing, through.
Yeah, no worries. Let me hear my writing now. And I turn my mic.
Yes.
So we're gonna look for a motion to go back into open session.
Make a motion that we go back into open session, please.
Support.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Would anyone like to make a motion based on what was talked in closed session?
I would. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the township attorney to initiate litigation in circuit court as discussed in the closed session.
Support.
Any discussion? There's really nothing to discuss, so.
Right.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Would anyone else like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to hire co-counsel to assist as necessary and appropriate and as determined by Dan Martin to assist in the matter discussed in closed session.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. Thank you. Now we're gonna move on to the manager's report.
Just a few items as you all know, we are analyzing the issues of the contamination on the property at the community park. We got our second round of results back and they were positive. And so now we will be working with our engineering consultant to figure out remediation. I have submitted those costs for the testing to the county. So I'll be following up with the county tomorrow morning and probably going down to the Fillmore complex to make sure that that application goes in. Also going to be talking with the county about potentially assisting with any remediation costs and trying to get some dollars for some topsoil, because I think what is likely to have happen is that we'll have a recommendation of some topsoil put on that area. So potentially to try to recoup some of those costs. Working a lot on recreation.
Just for the public, could you said the samplings were positive. Could you comment on what was positive specifically? Wasn't it just the chromium?
Correct.
And not the arsenic?
Correct. There was no additional levels of arsenic detected above direct contract, above the issues of concern with direct contact. Yes. So the chromium still came back. So that is good news. And that means that we may have just hit one area that's of issue and we do not have a larger problem that is more spread out, but I will still work to get some of those costs resolved. Working a lot on recreation and trying to work through our rec department and our offerings of programs. So working on a number of items with respect to that. Waiting on a trust fund grant application, should hear in the next few days, within the week certainly. So keep our fingers crossed. I don't want to jinx it. So we'll just we'll wait and hope. And with that, we are at 9 o'clock, so I'll take any questions. One last thing, been working a lot with the community center group. That committee is putting together some really good work. You will start seeing some stuff on our website, some integrated blog posts that group will do, some literature, some marketing materials coming out. And we are also working on getting some proposals back from some planning consultants to help that group with some public participation efforts. So those contracts similar to what we discussed earlier on the policy review, those contracts will probably be coming in front of you because they would not have been approved in our budget document. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
Hearing none, we will move to public comment. Anyone on this side? Anyone on this side? You don't need to, but you can if you'd like.
I may as well. Just wanted to say I'm disappointed to hear that, your motions, but maybe it will actually be for the best for the whole state, since I know that they're all looking at this.
Thank you. Great, now we're gonna move on to, we're gonna close public comment. Now we're gonna move on to board comments. I think I started at this side last time. Trustee Swoll. Yeah, so you need that this one. Great. We recently had a committee meeting on the Township Center. We are progressing, as Howard stated, in a number of areas. We're working specifically right now, which brand survey that we're going to be publishing and sending out for input. Howard's been a tremendous help as far as integrating the website and making it so that it's not only a push out, but also a push pull. So we're really trying hard to get input from the Township. We've got a number of different things that we're working on. So excited to see something very January. They're really going to wait until after Christmas season. Will say, I know we anticipated this would be a 1.5 year process. I think you're doing it like what, 6 months?
So I think that the way that we're planning out right now, we're going to be able to present the program back to the board probably in the fall. Yeah, and then even with that, we'll get the opportunity to go back with addition. Not just on the cost, but that's where we're at. They're really going to
Thank you.
I have put a report on the dais from our last meeting at the West Michigan Regional Airport. Item of note, Danielle, the world's greatest deputy clerk, has requested that she give up the 8 hours a week she devotes to the rec department and become full-time deputy. The demands of the job, based on the laws that have changed, will keep her busy full-time, and she feels that she cannot meet properly the needs of a rec director. So Howard and I have agreed that this will be effective January 1st. I think she's been a good rec director. I know she's sorry to give up. That was a fun part of her job. But if there's any question about whether or not she's going to be busy, I have here 6 pages of new election laws that we're now going to have to operate on. So I'm glad that she's going to be with us full time.
Really glad you're the clerk. All right.
I'm sorry, you're I won't reiterate anything that's in Mika's report to you. Already alluded to the fact that we are hiring additional support for her with a consultant to do the master plan. In that comment, I'd just like to make a comment regarding actually probably speaking for the planning commission as well as for Mika. I think they all appreciate your support to increasing manpower to her with an assistant. I think there's a lot on the plate for 2024 that's going to keep that person pretty busy. The master plan alone, short-term rentals reared its ugly head again. There are 3 proposals already for development in the area. there's a lot that's gonna happen just in the next 3 to 4 months. So I think it's gonna be very helpful to us. I think it will help ensure that we have completeness and accuracy more so than we currently have. And I think that's going to be a big efficiency for us. The second item I have is I applied for and was selected to fill a 4-year term as a member of the Ottawa County Land Bank Authority as the township representative. The Land Bank Authority works to address distressed properties in Ottawa County. And it's an effort to rehabilitate those properties to make them economically efficient. So looking forward to the involvement with a little work at the county.
Nice. Very good. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Trustee Stigler, or excuse me. Treasurer.
Treasurer's.
Sorry.
You all received my max transportation report, the minutes. The only other thing is, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. Everybody has their personal lives and their personal goals and problems, and I just hope you all have a very Merry Christmas and God bless all of you.
To you.
Sound like Tiny Tim.
As far as the CBA, Mika has a good report on that. I wasn't able to make the last CBA. And then, Ottawa County Fair Board, they just elected their new officers at the last meeting. The only one that changed is they have a new vice president. And that's, Chris Lubia, you know, you never know, he does our maintenance and stuff like that. And they're just talking about going to the convention in January with things that, and so that's about it.
Very good. Great, thank you.
We do.
Right.
We might need to do that before we adjourn.
Manager has one more quick comment.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna make it quick, but I'm gonna punt here for just a moment, sir. Can I have that? Did we approve the Board of Trustees work session minutes? Okay, good. Thank you.
Should have been.
Yes. Excuse me, I missed it.
Harry asked me and I was like, well, if we hadn't done that, we need to. No, quick comment. We are getting requests in for pickleball tournaments. And so Jim and I will talk through that and try to put together something for the board to review. We have one already has requested, and I am going to be the incoming president of Rotary for next year. And I also am going to be requesting a pickleball tournament through Rotary. So we officially have 2 that have come in.
Not to elongate the meeting, but can we please be careful in not occupying those courts with tournaments when we have the township wanting to use them? I'm okay, thank you, because
Yep, no,
thank you.
I got it. So, all right, let's see, the Matt, you saw my paper, the minute or the agenda, everything passed. I don't have anything else to say other than Merry Christmas. Let's see, Happy Hanukkah, and is it Happy Kwanzaa? Happy Kwanzaa. And so, yes, have a wonderful holiday time with family. Yeah, see you in January. And now we'll look for a motion to adjourn. A motion to adjourn. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great. Thank you all. Appreciate it.